Welcome back, everyone. This is Austin here at 2FC Tactical, and we're going to talk a little bit today about what's going on here in Minnesota. Now, we've recently talked about, New Mexico and their assault weapons ban, and congratulations to all of you out there that defeated that. And then, of course, we talked about Virginia a lot lately as they are continuing to push forward an insane amount of gun bills. But we are a Minnesota company, and we would be remiss if we didn't talk about our home state, which has an abysmal track record when it comes to gun rights. So today we're going to talk about the Minnesota attempts to do what Virginia is doing, at least on a small scale. So we're going to dive right into it. All right, everyone, we are going to talk about two bills today. This is going to be a House File 343 and this companion version of the Senate version of 3654. Now, those two bills, and I've got a trusty little paper here just to make sure I highlight everything that are in these particular bills, are going to attempt to bring a flavor of assault weapons ban and magazine capacity ban to Minnesota. Now, we've talked about before that there are definitely two tracks of this, right? There is what New Mexico just attempted to do, which is a operating system ban. So it's banning gas operations, blowback, and piston-driven operations in semi-auto rifles and shotguns. They did exempt handguns, and that bill just went down. Then there's the classic, the old trusty assault weapons ban, the ones that we saw federally in 1994, and the one we see out in California and a myriad of other states, which are feature-based, based on specific types of features on something like this. Generally speaking, when we talk about features, we're talking about pistol grips, semi-automatic functions, detachable magazines, threaded barrels, barrel shrouds, adjustable stocks, maybe even bayonet lugs, but some version of that where you can only have one of those features, and if it has more than one, I should say, then it is presumably banned. So that is what we're going to talk about today. Now, real quick, if you don't mind hitting that like and subscribe button down below, leave us a comment, drop us anything that you'd like us to cover or your thoughts of opinions on this. And if you don't mind going over the Rumble and pressing that follow over there as well. And if you'd like to support the channel, we have a Patreon. Please go over there and follow us. And again, thanks for everybody who tunes in. It's always awesome to talk with all of you. We have followers all over the world. And I've gotten some really cool emails discussing things from, say, our SKS with some individuals in Russia, or, whether it's be some of the German stuff we've done or whatever. It's an awesome opportunity and can't wait to bring you more. But diving in today, because we're about Minnesota, and of course, we know our guy, Governor Walz, right? He went around saying how he carried these things in combat, which turns out he never saw combat, at least not actual combat, maybe with a paperclip. And then he has opinions on what you and I should own, despite the fact that he's surrounded by 24-hour security at all times and has no problem with those guys having the guns. He just doesn't want you and I having the guns. Typical politician, right? Live in gay communities, they are behind walls, therefore everything is okay for them to have, but you and me, us mere peasants out here, aren't allowed to have the very items that we need to defend ourselves. And I'm going to take just a brief sidetrack here. When we say defend ourselves, we must remember what the Second Amendment is actually for. It is for public defense, defense against tyranny. Yes, private defense, the actions against you and I from other individuals in private life, of course, are covered. But primarily, when we talk about our founding fathers, say James Madison, we are talking about public defense. That's how tyranny reigns. So what is Minnesota trying to do? We are trying to, I say we, unfortunately, it's a state that I live in, not a state I'm from, but a state I live in and have lived in here a while now, so I guess we have to call it home. We're trying to prohibit the possession, transfer of quote-unquote military-style assault weapons. Now, what does that mean? That is the California flavor, which is semi-automatic firearms that have detachable magazines and have, one of the offending features like I just mentioned. There are, of course, always exceptions to this, right? That is for law enforcement and military, because the government gets the guns. They always get to have the means to defend themselves, but God forbid you and I have the means to defend ourselves from them. We do have a provision in there that allows people who legally own these guns before this bill goes into place. So there's this grandfather clause that you see in a lot of different bills all over in there. So if you currently have them, you get to keep them. It's just the transfer after that is where this is different. And what do I mean by that? So if you look at, say, California or some other states, generally speaking, I should say some other states that have assault weapons bans like this. Generally speaking, if you have a grandfathered firearm, that can be transferred because it's on the registry as one of the grandfather models. Those can be bought and sold, but you can't add new ones. That is not what Minnesota is doing. Minnesota is adding a hard cutoff. You can never transfer it. So when you die or you're ready to give it up, you have to turn it into law enforcement for destruction. So there's no way for you to say pass on heirloom or anything like that. So let's just take this guy behind me right here. That is in 1973 Colt AR-15. It is a collector's item, right? Unfortunately, it would fall underneath the assault weapons ban that they are trying to put forward here, which means that there's no way to preserve this piece of history. We would have to destroy it. That is what they're purporting here. Now, we're using that as a case. It doesn't matter if it's something from 50 years ago or if it's something you built in your garage yesterday. The Second Amendment covers that. You get to own it. No one can tell you you can't unless you're doing a criminal act with it. That is the key. But what they are doing here is what I would call a possession ban, a mere possession ban, meaning that they're ascribing to you criminal intent just because of something you own, not because of anything that you are doing or purport to do or have even considered doing. Because if we think about this, right, the people that own things like that, most of them, because there's 200 million of them in the United States, never intend to use them for crime, and they never do. So they're trying to assign a criminal action to you sometime in this unforeseen future that they can't tell you when, where, or how, or even if, but they're assuming that you will. That's what they're attempting to do. Going to talk a little bit too that there's another piece to this, which is a magazine ban, because of course there is. So they're going to also ban any magazines over 10 rounds because, of course, once you hit that 11th round, it is somehow prohibited. It is a special class of gun. So 10 is fine, 11 is not. Hey everyone, quick pause in the video to give a shout out to our channel sponsor, Patriot Mobile. Now, I have been with Patriot Mobile for 2 years personally, and I cannot be happier with my service. I have the unplugged phone that I got because of Sean Ryan's podcast, but they have every phone you could want. And as the only Christian conservative wireless provider on the market, they put their money where the mouth is, which is supporting the rights that you and I enjoy, including the Second Amendment, which is what we're all about here at 2FYC Tactical. So please give them a consideration for switching. We are all using phones and mobile wireless all the time. So why not support a company that supports you? Using the code shall not infringe, you can save over at Patriot Mobile, and there will be a unique link code down below. So please go check it out. Now back to the video. So what are the criminal penalties for this? Well, of course, felonies. They say maybe misdemeanors depending on the action, but let's be real. This is Minnesota we're talking about, and we have this guy as the governor, so therefore it's going to be more than likely a felony. And I guess I shouldn't even say this guy. It's less about him. It's more about we have this guy as our attorney general. That would, of course, be Keith Ellison, who is on board with everything. Now, for those of you out there who say that we can't make a difference, I'm going to say we can. We just saw New Mexico that has Democrat control, anti-gunners control in all three chambers. Got the House, the Senate, and the executive branch, the governor's mansion down there, attempt to do something like this, actually attempt to do something even more extreme than this, and it failed because of grassroots organizations and those who support you. The same guys I mention on the channel all the time. You have GOA, FPC, Firearms Policy Coalition, National Association for Gun Rights, and Second Amendment Foundation, NRAILA. I can never say that right. I am so sorry to them. And of course, here in Minnesota, we have the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus. If you're watching this from afar, and you're looking at a state like us, and you're going like, that's insane. Say you're in, I don't know, Tennessee, where you are attempting to pass a bill that is very pro-gun. That's very exciting. Do remember that this is never more than a generation away where this can come to you. It was not that long ago that Minnesota was a fairly strong supporter of the Second Amendment. And let's just give Governor Walz a shout out here, I guess. He was actually someone that got a good rating with the NRA at one point. Now, that's not to say that the NRA graded it wrong. That's to say that up until that point of his career, he had hidden his true intentions, or he's caved to the anti-gunners. It doesn't really matter. The effect's the same. Regardless here, he is now pushing for strong gun control here, and that will continue. Now, I should mention that the Senate file 3654, and I'm going to read that from here, is basically the same core purposes. There's really no difference between the two of them. The scope is the same. The penalties are the same. So this is just one in the Senate, one in the House. And of course, it has to pass both chambers and go to the governor's desk for signature to become law. Now, when that comes to what are the likelihoods that this passes, it's tough to say in Minnesota because you never want to say never. It is an election year, and a lot of individuals are up for their seats this year. And you know, I could see maybe the Senate flipping, but the House is always in danger here. The governorship, you would assume, is going to Amy Klobuchar, who, let's just be real, agrees with all this. She is fully on board and would throw her weight behind it and push for it. So anyone who goes out there and says that, you know, she's very bipartisanship, or she has a lot of bipartisanship, maybe that on other things, but definitely not on guns. She's very anti-gun. She's made that abundantly clear. I think this is a crapshoot. The biggest issue that we have is there is a 21-19 split in the Senate to the DFL. So the anti-gunners technically have one up on the supposed pro-gunners. Obviously, the governor of Manchin is all for this. And then in the House, there's a 50-50 split between Republicans and the DFL. And for those of you tuning in, the DFL stands for the Democratic Farmers Labor Party. It's a Democratic Party. They have a special name here compared to some other states. All you need in the House is one to flip. All you need is one to flip. Now, is there a chance that this dies? Yeah, there's a chance that this dies in the House for sure. And just because the Senate is 21-19 doesn't mean it will pass there either. There are some DFLers up in the Iron Ranges that definitely are a little bit more open to gun rights than others, say in the cities of Minneapolis, St. Paul. So there's no guarantees it passes there. I do think, though, the more that this comes up, the more they push for it, the higher likelihood this will eventually pass, unfortunately. I think that's the reality. We have to fight, and we're going to have to fight hard. If it doesn't pass this year, depending on how the election goes next year, it might pass next year. So this is going to be a fight every year, at least until the Supreme Court, and I have called upon the Supreme Court to do the right thing multiple times, at least until they do something at that level about you cannot ban commonly owned firearms, period, dot, because the Second Amendment is for commonly owned firearms. Now, I have heard in the comments, this is true. You would think that Heller, the District of Columbia versus Heller, and the Bruin decision pretty much expound upon that enough. You don't really need to add anything more about it. That is correct. But they didn't name these types of weapons specifically, and as always, anti-gunners are looking for anything they can to ban you and I from exercising our rights. So therefore, since they weren't named specifically, therefore, theoretically, in their mind, they can go after it. That is what we're up against. Now, again, please fight. Please contact Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus. Kick them some money. Show up when we have rallies. Call your representatives. And that's free to do. Just calling your representatives and pushing hard against them and saying, I will not stand for this. Send them an email. If you can, send them a written letter or do all three. That all makes an impact. And again, I keep hearing, well, I live in a Democratic state. My senator or House member or whatever is not for guns. Me calling isn't going to change their mind. They can be moved because they are scared of us and our numbers. There are way more gun owners than anti-gunners in the United States. There are way more. If we band together, we are a powerful coalition that can move the needle, whether it be via elections, because our electoral votes matter, or whether or not they take up certain types of legislation on the federal or state side. We can make a difference. And I'm encouraging you to please call this number, which is the Capitol switchboard, and make that push. Find your local representative. And again, reach out to the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus. kick them a little something to help fight these bills as they're up at the Capitol every day fighting for you and me. With that being said, I do hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe again. And if you'd like to know a little bit more about this or anything else that we are covering, and we're covering a lot of news these days as we try to become your one-stop 2A shop here at 2F by C, check out our news section. And again, just kind of peruse. We got stuff all over the country going on right now, whether it's the Supreme Court level or state and local levels. And again, shout out to New Mexico for showing us there is a way. Those grassroots organizations showing us there is a way that we can win. Until then, guys, do what we can and keep your powder dry. We'll see you on the next video.